Lee Bogner has done it all at Mars. AI-powered digital twins saving millions, that's one. Predictive maintenance transforming operations, two. And three, the holy grail for many, which is marketing optimization that's driving actual revenue. Now he's scaling AI to 90,000 knowledge workers. Again, quite the feat. So not to reveal too much ahead of time, and we already talked about this, but if you're wondering about how Lee is doing all this, the secret there is relatively simple. AI is not the same as IT and should therefore not be treated the same. So let's see what else is in Lee's playbook for scaling what works. Lee, welcome, and Greg, you're up again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Good to see you again.
Yeah, Greg. All right. Good to see
Where,
you.
yeah, where are you joining us from today?
New York City area, suburbs.
All right. Okay. Great. I'm in downtown, and there's something happening. I think it's the UN General Assembly or something. So,
Yeah.
a lot of sirens and a lot of bad traffic. Anyway, great to see you. Let's get right into it, Lee. Our previous speaker, we zoomed out and really
Yep.
looked at sort of industry trends, and we looked at sort of where this is going. In this conversation, Lee, with you, I want to zoom in, and because you're on the ground, you've been on the ground building and deploying AI internally, both for employees and into customer experiences as well. So why don't we start there, Lee? When you think about AI, and again, this flavor of AI, this moment, generative AI, how do you think about it as should we prioritize building it into products and services, customer experiences, our websites and our apps and the things that customers interact with? Should we prioritize using it internally to drive better process, productivity, and so on? Both? Like just riff for a minute or two on how you think about it.
So the way we look at it is we have a very wide scope of businesses across the globe, and we have four different business entities: food, pet food, and candy, in 85 countries. We also are a very principle-based company, and we build out our digital technologies, our e-commerce, our social, our cloud, based on these locales as well as a global perspective. So when we're looking at things like Gen AI, we can begin to think about how will it help each of our businesses in those locales, in those nations, in those regions, and globally. And then how do we go across the board for full end-to-end enterprise? So there's a lot of thinking along that. It's really not different from the way we approach digital and IT. The difference is generative AI in particular and AI predictive analytics, things like that, are newer. And with their being newer, there's less, really matured skills, if you will. A lot of people are playing with it. There's a high demand from suppliers, from customers, and the various businesses, and many of our business areas are further ahead than others. When I said we are principle based, we focused on quality, responsibility, efficiency, mutuality, and freedom. Freedom is, I like to say, freedom comes at a cost. We can do a lot of things in our businesses can. So many of them that are a little bit more mature with generative AI are moving much more quickly. So we've been using AI and generative AI to some degree, as well as, let's say, e-commerce AI, 5, 6, 10 years. And a lot of it is bottom up, market driven, especially in emerging markets where there's a lot of these frontier economies, and they really don't have the dollars to spend on, the global platforms, the Salesforce, the SAPs, and all of that. Now, that said, many of those tools are front ending their own Gen AIs. So
Sure.
it's a big mix match of
Yeah,
build
so yeah,
versus
but
buy versus build.
let's go just a little bit deeper there because
Yeah.
I think you answered the question I'm about to ask though. So
Yeah.
because you talked about freedom, because the question I was going to ask is that thinking you talked about, right? That strategy layer of thinking
Yeah.
around how to, what to do with these technologies like digital, e-commerce, mobile, cloud. What now it's AI, Gen AI. Is that done locally or is that done centrally or some combination? Is it like AI SWAT team, with you, or is it some combination? Like just help us understand or recommend what you think we should be doing, central versus decentralized or a hybrid?
Exactly. So the answer is yes, all of the above. Now let me break it down. Um, when you look at a large company, you want to take advantage. What's the advantage of doing things centrally? The advantage of doing things centrally, like we learned in IT and digital and cloud and all that, is that you have a structure, you have better commercial relationships with your vendors and your partners. You're able to leverage skill sets across the whole enterprise, but you might not move fast enough for the locales. So the locales, again, on the freedom, you're absolutely right, Greg. The smaller regions and countries aren't going to wait around for um, uh, SAP to be rolled out, which takes many years. They'll go with Navision or some smaller ERP. Same
Yep.
with AI. So they'll start. Uh, what we do have is centralized governance and review,
Mhm.
which really helps all of our um, applications coming in on all sides, enterprise, digital, and now AI. And that's where I spend a good part of my time when I joined Mars is helping shepherd that through. Today, especially with AI, responsible AI, safety, governance has to be built in to each application. And we've learned that along the way with the prior technologies. So we're much better at it. And we have frameworks that allow us to do that. So this helps us understand what's going to be safe and usable. We do not want to restrict freedom by the businesses that have to compete in those local areas, and especially if they have local vendors that have AI capabilities that might work for them. But we do have a process, and that process can be long and deep, or it can be short and quick to
Yep.
meet market demands. So
But
that's just
at least,
high level.
yeah, I got it. You said something I think it's really relevant to all of us, which is
Mhm.
this is such a new area. There's sort of a lack of talent, right? A
Yes,
lack
yes,
of having enough people inside the org that can think through this stuff and figure it out
great.
and build with it and run a POC and
Yes,
so what are you doing about that in terms of either developing or hiring
right, right.
more people with those skills? How do you think about that challenge and how fast do you want to kind of close that gap?
So Mars over the last 5 years has been very big in advanced data and data science and hiring in those areas. And that kind of morphed into AI talent, and there's more hiring in those areas. So these big commitments, I mean, huge $1 million investments in talent, as well as skills training and the like. You can never, in my opinion, not put enough into skills training. Now, with that said, there's there's innovative technologies that you might want to use. They might come from startups. Uh, there are professional service partners that we've had for many years, and they have centers of excellence that we can partner with. And we're building our own centers of excellence throughout the company. So there's a variety of ways we're approaching it. And it kind of goes to what you were asking. We have central, we have highly distributed, and then we have a federated model, which is semi uh, distributed, uh, but plays nice with others on both sides.
Let's talk about your center of excellence. Just, and maybe Lee, frame of reference. Most of us obviously aren't working in an organization the size of Mars. But
Right.
if I was leading 100-person or I don't know, let's say several 100-person organization, and I wanted to set up a AI center of excellence, just talk us through in your mind what that should look like, and what's that center of excellence actually going to do? What's its value?
So I think you got to look at it in a set of stages uh, in terms of identifying talent. What do you have? Who's mature? Who's not mature? I'm very big around AI literacy, nomenclature, and speaking the same language. One of the challenges that companies run into is that uh, as these technologies, especially AI, GPT, and the like, become more pervasive publicly, everyone thinks they're an expert. And frankly, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. And people are not connected. So one of the things that I like is to be able to have uh, strategic elements discussed, framed, maybe by business unit, by country, uh, and then focus on their domain levels, either their product lines, their supply chains, their corporate functions, and begin to look at those elements. So if you can break it down into some of those areas.
And
Hmm?
are you insisting on when new projects are being proposed, are you using some sort of common template, Lee, or sort of approval process to green light
Sure,
AI?
sure.
And now I want to shift the conversation now to ROI.
Right.
But is this kind of the first step of bringing ROI into focus, which is, hey, this is kind of the template you've got to come use and come with us,
Do.
to get approval?
We do. Um, we have I'm going to call it semi-mature because it always can improve. Obviously, always continuously improvement. And what I'll call it is the approval and governance process. And it's based on architectures. It's based on technologies and frameworks. It's a central function, enterprise architecture. It's strategic in terms of direction, so it connects our partners, meaning our platforms or our systems integrator partners, with innovative technologies and brings them together. We have processes where you go through and uh, uh, you get approved through going through a series of steps and templates. It can be deep and full, as I mentioned before, or fast track. And these analyze the application architecture, the business architecture, the data architecture, the infrastructure, the hosting environment, all of that coming together, and then connecting with security architecture and responsible AI. And then we have um,
But
uh,
hold sec, Lee, hold sec. But what level of analysis do you expect in that? I get all the architecture stuff and the governance, but I really want to focus on the ROI. When these projects are coming forward, is there an expectation of demonstrable ROI in some sort of time frame, or is it maybe that there's less of a requirement for ROI because it's only going to be a POC or
right.
more like
Right.
an experiment, experiment and AI experiments,
We look at as most companies will do, or similar and major corporations will do. Uh, we'll focus on budgeting for a POC and then taking that to an MVP and then taking that uh, to a uh, production live environment. And
Mhm.
this can be a fully internal Gen AI application or something that's reaching out to the consumers or to our suppliers. So there's a variety of approaches and various techniques. So there is budget constraints that have to be looked at, and the higher they are, the more scrutiny by
Sure.
leadership and CFO
Yep.
gets involved.
Yep. What do you think the mood is these days, either at Mars or more broadly around ROI? Is there skepticism? Is there what's your sense of the moment we're in? Emily, our previous guest, said we need to be more patient. This will take, we are very early, obviously, in that, the proven business value of these programs will take a while.
Right.
Do you agree, or do you think we should be more demanding of proven business value? What's your sense of this moment?
So I think we have to be realistic. I caught the end of what Emily was talking about, and I agree with her. There's a maturity aspect, and we're at the low end, the lower left side of that. We're at the crawl stage, not the walk, the run, or the fly stage.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that have to be proven. If you look at ROI for AI, versus traditional is really looking at predictable savings and uh, efficiency, cost savings, and all of that. Here we're looking for an AI, probabilistic outcomes, a portfolio of POCs and MVPs, um, augmentation of personalization that might already be in place or entering into new business models. So it's a
Yeah.
variety. It includes a number of non-financial, intangible, strategic, value-oriented
Sure.
metrics, and
Yeah.
and uh, and it's really about emergent and iteration.
Yeah. But at some point, the patience is going to run out, right? For the people who are, the CFO eventually
Mhm.
is going to want
That's
to.
why you need the leadership, the senior leadership buy-in. And the way that we work is that we work hand in hand. The CFO is a part of the conversation, but then so is the CIO and the COO and the CEO.
Yep.
Uh, and we have many of each across our various businesses. So it's not
Sure.
like dealing with one or two, we're dealing with dozens.
So if those guys, and I say that generically, meaning gender generically, if those men and women in the C-suite aren't on board, your advice would be not to go ahead, or like you really do need. The CTO might be able to buy it, but unless you have real business leadership buy-in, you're probably going to run into trouble, I would imagine, right?
True, but I think this is where the culture comes in. You really need to understand um, we want to clamp down on one-offs that aren't providing value, that's for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and,
Yeah.
and whimsical projects. And then you go all the way back to the corporate mission, way at the tippy top, just like any other company that's working effectively. And if the elements of the projects and its various steps, its various leaderships through the organizations, and it's meeting those missions and values, then you begin to have buy-in from even the tippy top leadership because you can prove that we're going to drive revenue, reduce costs, all of that. Now, it's not as necessarily as tangible as a structured, ERP implementation that's, you know, we're going to the next level after 30 years. We've
Sure.
had a lot of experience in that. There's
Right.
a lot of unanswered questions, and we have to be able to go out and fail. We have to have a soft, safe space that we can experiment. Why? Because we want to be leaders in our various countries and locations and brands and products, and that's all part of it.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you're right, but tolerating, you would admit, right? Tolerating failure inside of corporate. I'm not speaking to Mars specifically. I'm speaking to just corporate life in general. Failure, failure is not necessarily a good thing. Obviously, startups live and die by Silicon Valley. Sure, creative destruction, all that, right?
I think
Darwin.
you got to look at a level of perspective, Greg.
Yeah.
Failure on a project is different than failure on a business model.
No, for sure. No, I don't disagree.
Those
Obviously, I
are
agree. I mean, I just think it's for some, it's been for some, this prospect of
Mhm.
failure is enough, is a deterrent, obviously, just because we are early. A lot of
Yes,
POCs aren't making it into production,
that
and that can just
is
be,
true. Yeah.
yeah.
And
All
it
right, listen, we
depends
got to
on
race.
what state we are. I
Yeah,
think, as companies like ours and companies similar to ours continue to grow, we'll see more move into production. But many of us are still in the experimental stage.
yeah. Lee, we got to race to a close here. I'd love you to share what's surprised you the most the last couple, 3 years. I know you got, again, referring to generative AI, your
Sure.
experience with AI and machine learning is longer and with a lot more
But
experience there. But
let me
most recently, as you've scaled generative AI across the organization, what's surprised you the most to the upside and to the downside, and maybe comment on how it's really different than deploying other IT technologies internally, if you will. But yeah, what surprised you to the upside and downside?
Well, the way I'm looking at it and what I'd like to share is it's really about leadership, communication, strategy, and execution. And I got 5 points I'd like to share with you. One is
Let's do it.
the curse of knowledge, and that's both AI and human literacy. And I've talked about it a little bit. Being consistent, having the skills, or being able to communicate with your partners inside and outside, as well as customers and consumers, and not getting caught up in the jargon and knowing too much more so than your constituents and your stakeholders, but having that even keel environment. We've learned a lot through e-commerce and the other digital technologies. We need a good understanding of fundamentals, risks, and safety. We also need to really keep an eye on outsourcing critical thinking to machines. I'm very concerned about that, both in industry and education, because it has a definite impact. Third, I'd like to talk where prompt writing and prompt engineering is really an art, and it's melding into templates, libraries, and context engineering. And you touched on that a little bit with the reinforcement learning with Emily. Next, fourth, I'd like to
Well,
talk about
just a
the
whole sec.
yeah.
You're just saying everybody should, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're saying everybody should be good at advanced prompting. That's what I heard you just say. Is that right? Like
Well,
this
if
is
you want me to dig into it, happy to go into it at a level of depth either now or later. But I think prompting and context engineering with the reinforcement and understanding how tools, data, and model selection work. But prompting itself as the art and science is the wave of the future. You're going to have reading, arithmetic, and writing. And
Yep.
writing will include prompt writing because you're not just writing for humans, you're writing for machines.
Yep.
And then you got to go back and forth.
Love it. Okay.
Tied to that, and AI agents that you are asking is the impact on the workforce. What's happening, and there's a trend where companies have begun to lay people off because of the fear or the impact of AI, and the consulting firms are doing all this stuff. Yeah, you know what's happening? It's not only 9 months later, they're beginning to hire some of these people back. Why? Because of a thing called AI slop, SLOP, or work
Yep.
slop. And that's because the quality of the work coming out of the AI is not up to where they need it. So at the
Yep.
end of the day, and my last point is about full agentic autonomy. We will never reach that. We will always have human in the loop. We will be highly autonomized, even more so as we get better, but the human's always got to be in there. So those are my 5 points on closing.
I love it. I love the vote for humans. And we're the pilots. The AIs are the co-pilot, right?
Yes, very good.
Not the other way around. And yeah, we don't need more slop.
But the reality is the prompt engineering, even though it kind of gets a bad rap, you got to be able to communicate with machines, do the reinforcement learning, do the iterations, uh, be able to work within the context windows and create agents that can do that too.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a big element.
I saw some research this week,
Yes.
Lee. I think it was from Better Up Labs, and it was about I think they surveyed employees, and one of the complaints of employees was their coworkers were over relying on AI, so outsourcing too much, and that it was sort of like work slop, I think is what
That's
someone
where the
called
work
it.
slop, AI slop comes in.
And I had breakfast this morning with my 24-year-old son, so I asked him about this. Like, do you think this is happening? Work slop. I don't see it obviously at section, and he's like, absolutely.
Well, this goes back to the literacy, the learning, industry and education. And I'm an academic too, right? So people are trying to take shortcuts in work and in education just to get their tasks done. And they're not verifying.
Yeah.
And you have to be held to account on that. So that's
Yep.
all part of the operational process.
All right. Accountability, human accountability. We're the pilots. Thank you, Lee. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Greg.